joining me today. So today we're going to be carrying on with part 3 of our 4-part series, and the title of the series is Triple C and D. So the first video was on confidence, then we touched on courage, and today we want to talk about being consistent. And then the last video next time will be on the last topic, which will begin with the letter D. So all these things are important in us, becoming everything that God wants us to become, and at the end of the day, achieving our God-given purpose and being successful people in this life. So what is consistent? What is being consistent? What does it mean to be consistent? So I'll explain it in 2 ways. The first one is when you're consistent in doing something, you're doing it repeatedly over and over and over again over a period of time, with a view of achieving something that is good, or improving in some way, perhaps in something like, for example, accuracy in a certain area. And then the second way we can explain or describe consistent is in the way someone is, which means that they are constant, they are steadfast, they are unchanging. You can know that this person, this is the way they'll always be. They're kind, or they're always shy, or a certain thing. It's basically describing them in a way that you know that they're predictable. So it's good to be predictable in a good way, because then that means in the end you become reliable. So it's more of a character trait. And the best example I can give of the latter really is our Lord Jesus Christ. In Hebrews chapter 13 verse 8, it actually says that Jesus is the same yesterday, today and forever. So he is our role model. We need to be people who have of good character and be unchanging and dependable therefore. But today I want to focus more on the first one, which is repeatedly doing things over and over again, because that's what we call habit forming. Because in this life, to achieve our goals, we really need to be repeating and repeating and repeating things until for long enough until we get or achieve the results that we want to achieve. For example, it might be something like maybe you wake up at 6, and so you want to be waking up at 6. If it's every day, then you need to do that every day for you to be consistent in that. Or it might be something like maybe you exercise 4 times a week, then that's what you do. Or maybe you study every Sunday and you do that every Sunday. So when you do that, you become consistent. And why is it important to be consistent? So obviously to be consistent means that you're repeating something to the extent that you're able to actually accomplish your goals and achieve what you set out to. You're working towards something. And things that help are things like maybe routines, plans, timetables, and having a goal in mind or setting a milestone. When you have that, you find that it becomes easier, not necessarily easy, but easier to work towards those goals and achieve them in the end, because you're doing something over and over and over and over again. So being consistent, okay, while you may have things that help you, like the timetable and routine and so forth, it's not always easy. You actually need to determine to be focused. You need to be someone who's patient. You need to have grit. You need to have resilience, so that if you have setbacks, you get up again. And you also need to make sure you're not distracted easily, because circumstances may change around you, the environment may change around you, but you still need to be steadfast. So even if you wake up and it's cold, and you said that you would run on a Wednesday, you just get up, dress more warmly, and then you continue running. Be consistent, run every Wednesday, do whatever it is that you're supposed to do. So what I want to do now, I want to give you some illustrations of being consistent. And the sports domain is actually a very good domain for to illustrate a lot of examples. So Muhammad Ali, he was one of the most famous boxers. He once said, I'm going to paraphrase, okay? He said that, I hated every minute of training. But I said to myself, don't quit, suffer now and live the rest of your life like a champion. So what that said to me was, obviously the training, he was obviously boxing and running and skipping and all these things, and he had to do them, whatever, I don't know whether it was every day or at various points, throughout his career. But he recognized that I've got to do these, this is monotonous, I have to do this might be boring, it might be painful, but I have to do it over and over again. Being consistent is not always something that's pleasant. So he had to do it over and over again so that he could achieve his goal, becoming at that time the greatest boxing champion, and he achieved that. So being consistent is not always a pleasant experience. It's something that you just have to do over and over and over and over again, and just trust that you'll reach to whatever point you want to reach. And then I'll give you another illustration. Zig Ziglar said that there's no elevator to success. You have to take the stairs. So forget the elevator, which means a shortcut. You know, a lot of times you want to do things quickly, you want to rush, you want to just do things once and get results. Now, if you want to be consistent, you can't do that. And if you want great results, you can't do that. So just imagine, for example, that there's a building, okay, and you want to get to the 20th floor, and you know, there's stairs, okay, forget the elevator. And so you have to keep climbing and climbing and climbing and climbing. And if you look at steps, they look the same, except maybe when you're going around the bend to the next floor, and it's monotonous, it's boring, it seems like pointless, it seems like you're not getting anywhere, and you just keep climbing and climbing and climbing, but before you know it, you've reached the first floor. You keep going, you've reached eventually the 6th floor, then the 8th floor, and eventually you reach what? The 20th floor. So you'll eventually reach your goal. And what have you done? All you're doing is just repeating the same thing, the same action. You're being consistent. So that's a very good illustration. No shortcuts, no elevator, just put in the work, and you eventually, you know, you'll get your results. I know in my own life I've seen that, you know, it's not easy to be consistent. Sometimes you want to get up early, maybe to exercise or whatever you need to do, or maybe you need to study, you know, regularly, or certain points for you to be able to achieve what you want to. And you know, it can be discouraging, you can fail, but you just have to decide. I had to decide for certain areas in my life that this is what I want to do, and that really motivated me to be consistent. I remember when I was doing my, you know, my doctorate, my supervisor said to me, she said to me, you know, just picture, you know, walking on the red carpet and graduating, you know, as you do your studies. And you know, I must say that is one of the things that you know, I kept in mind, and I kept being consistent, having that in mind, with a goal in mind, and that helped me, you know, not to give up. Because when you want to be consistent, you mustn't be someone who gives up. And you know, if you get setbacks, get up again and keep moving. Okay, so just to finish off, let's have a look at someone who was consistent, you know, in the Bible. There's quite a few examples, but I decided to touch on Daniel. Now Daniel, he was an Israelite who was living in a foreign land. He was, you know, in Babylon. So he was actually an administrator, one of the administrators who helped to coordinate and oversee things in the land. And you find that the king really liked him, King Darius, and he was actually planning to promote him. But you know, when his colleagues heard about this, they were not happy. They were just not happy. So they devised a plan, and they manipulated the king and got him to decree a new law that said that for the next 30 days, you cannot pray to anybody else except to King Darius. And that was the law. And they did that because they knew that Daniel loved God, and they wanted to trap him in some way. So if you read in Daniel chapter 6, if you go to verse 10, the interesting thing here, it says that Daniel heard about this new law, but it says that he continued to pray 3 times a day, morning, night, and evening, just as he had done before. Now, what does that say to us? To me, that means he was consistent. It doesn't matter that the environment changed, circumstances became adverse. He continued to pray 3 times a day, 3 times a day. He didn't care that there was a new law. Then the people who had plotted against him, they went to the king and said, remember you said that if anyone breaks the law, they have to be thrown in the lion's den. And look, Daniel, that's what he's doing. So the king was very distraught because he actually really liked Daniel. But then he was kind of stuck because he had decreed that you have to be punished in this manner. If you do this, if you pray to somebody else, to the living God, the one we know, the one that Daniel was praying to. So he had him thrown into the lion's den, but he was just not settled in his spirit. And he woke up very early in the morning to actually find out, to say, Daniel, has your God saved you, the God you prayed to? And Daniel answered and said, yes. He shut the mouths of the lions. And the king was overjoyed, had him taken out. And you know the rest of the story. The other people who had planned, you know, and tricked the king, they're the ones who were thrown in together with their spouses and their children. But Daniel was saved. And the king even said, from now on, everyone has to worship this God, Daniel's God. So what do we see here? This was all because he was consistent. He prayed every day. He was consistent in his faith. So I just want to encourage each and every one of us. Let's be consistent in whatever it is that we need to do. Let's keep doing it. We need to do things over and over again, repeatedly, for long enough, until we achieve or accomplish the things that we've set out to, the things that we must. Be encouraged. It pays off to be consistent, no matter how tedious, no matter how monotonous, no matter how, you know, boring or pointless that it may seem at the time. It may not be nice at the time, being consistent, but I can assure you will enjoy the results. Be blessed over this weekend, and I will see you next time when we touch on the last topic, beginning with the letter D. Bye for now.